Okay. How's it going, Vu?
Hey, Sean. Good. How are you? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I'm supposed to have a cooler background. So, hey, everyone, give me 1 second to get our typical background up. I don't know what happened. Oh, here we go. Cool. Now we are good. We are set. We are in outer space. Everything is right. So, hey, everyone, I am Sean Keegan. I am a developer advocate here at Postman. Today, we'll be doing Postman for developers and office hours. So, Vu, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Vu Nguyen. I'm a solutions engineer at Postman, and I'll be joining Sean today on his office hours and learning more about Postman.
Awesome. Yeah, so today the goal is very much to have kind of a collaborative session where we'll be going through a Postman public workspace and encouraging folks to follow along, learn about Postman, and hopefully be able to replicate some of the things we're doing at home as well. We'll have some folks in the chat that are able to help you throughout, and if you have questions or comments throughout, we'll be able to answer them and kind of help you get going. So
sounds good.
Yeah. So Postman office hours and Postman for Postman 101 sessions happen on the first Tuesday of every month. And I'll share my screen here and kind of give you an intro to what we're doing. So yeah, like I said, this is something we'll do on the first of every month. We do it twice a day. So earlier in the day for me, I think I was well asleep. One of our other developer advocates and another Postmanaut did Postman for developers as well for the APAC and EMEA region. And so this is more focused time-wise to folks in the Americas region. So I've got a few comments already. Harper says, astronaut Sean. So hey there, Harper. And I'm not sure what this means. Postman for Apple M1. So Raul, I'm not sure if I should know what Apple M1 is, but I do not. Bill, are you familiar?
I think that's the computer chip for the M1, how they weren't using Intel's chips anymore, so they built their own M1 chips. Okay. I think, but it should work across any device, even your tablet or phone with Postman on the web.
Gotcha. And then one more question here before we jump in. Will this session help QA automation engineers? Great question. So this one is focused specifically for developers and kind of getting developers informed and giving some tools and tricks for developers. So I imagine you'll find something valuable. And yeah, we will have futures like 101 and Postman for different personas throughout the coming months. So if this one isn't the one that's specifically targeted for you, hopefully we have one coming up that will be very informative and helpful. So with that said, let's take a look. So today is Postman for developers and office hours. So after we go through the Postman for developers, the second half will be time where it's kind of open-ended for people to ask their questions and anything you want, what it's like to work at Postman features. Really try to stump Vu and myself and have a great time. So like we said, I'm Sean Keegan, and that's Vu. We already talked about ourselves, so I don't think we need to labor on this one. But yeah, so this is our agenda for today. So we'll do a quick intro to Postman. So if you're not familiar with what Postman is, we'll cover that. Get started. So Vu's going to walk us through how you can go through the collection that we're going to be working on today, so that it's accessible for everyone and that you're able to follow along at home. We'll do a quick walkthrough explaining the various things in the collection that we're hoping everybody can learn. Talk about a few resources. So if you want to continue your learning, have some Q&A at the end for the Postman 101 session, followed by office hours, the open-ended section of the stream. So what is Postman? Vu, you want to give an introduction to Postman? I feel like you've talked to a lot of various customers and stuff at this point. So how would you describe Postman when you introduce it to people?
Oh man, there's so many different answers. Let's say, well, 5 or 6 years ago, Postman started off as a REST client on a Chrome extension within the browser, but it's evolved so much since then. So now Postman is a complete API development tool. So one of the biggest parts about it is that Postman places a big emphasis on collaboration, so you can work more efficiently and have better productivity amongst your teams and just build better quality APIs. So within Postman, you can run tests, you can call API endpoints, so it can be from a RESTful API, it can be a GraphQL, we even have WebSockets support now. And along the lines, you can build APIs. So you can insert an API schema and make edits, create mocks, and even set up monitors so you can run tests. And then afterwards, you can, once you're ready, as you build out your API, you can set up some documents and context so other people know how to use APIs. So you can publish your documentation. And it really goes on. There's like 30 other things I want to mention, but I don't want to have a whole laundry list. But the idea is that Postman, you can do anything with APIs. And one of the popular use cases is that you can test and just make sure that your APIs are of good quality and what you expected.
Yeah, and that's awesome, Vu. I think it went from kind of a small, singularly focused thing to kind of test and play with APIs to a full-fledged platform where really anything you want to do with APIs can be done. Cool. Okay, so learning objectives. So, we're hopeful that everyone knows what Postman is and what it's used for, and we kind of talked a bit about that. And then some of the more specific things, right? How to send a request. So we're going to talk about the CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete, inspecting a response, testing a response, save to a collection. That's going to be stuff with examples. Getting and setting variables. That's something people are not maybe familiar with, which is exciting. Basic authorization, and then we'll debug and troubleshoot some unexpected behavior. So if that doesn't make sense to you yet, hopefully by the end of this session it will. These are the things that we're going to focus on and introduce. So I see a few questions. If hopefully you're getting your questions answered in the chat by some Postmanauts that are there. If not, Vu and I will certainly stick around after the 101 session, and you'll be happy to kind of answer anything we can as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and follow along. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add this link. I'm going to add this link here. And this is going to be a link to a public workspace that Vu and I are going to work from. So I'm going to send it in the chat. And if you're going to follow along at home, I highly recommend clicking this link. I'm trying to pull it up here. So click this link, and that will bring up the workspace that we're going to go through. So I'll pull it up on my screen real quick. So this is the link that it'll take you to. And this is just a public workspace that we've created. And actually, Vu, do you want to take over, share your screen, and we can kind of go through what a public workspace is and how we can get folks following along?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
I can, but the folks at home cannot. So let me just switch it over. I'm going to pull mine down. All right. So here's Vu's. And Vu, would you mind zooming in a little bit?
Yes. How about now? Can you see it, Sean?
I think I muted myself as well. Yeah, so I can see it. But yeah, I was saying, do you want to give we got another person asking if you can zoom in one more time, Vu.
One more. Okay.
Yeah, I know it gets a little bit tricky to navigate the UI, but yeah. So what?
Yeah, I think I too much zoomed out. I blocked some blocks over here.
Yeah. So let's see if I can try to make it make ourselves a little bit smaller in here. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, Vu, do you want to just briefly introduce kind of what a workspace is and what this link is that we passed on to folks?
Yeah. So a workspace is, I think of it as my own project or even a team project where you can store your collections, APIs, environments, mocks, monitors, or even the history of your endpoints that you added. And within this workspace, you can have it for specific companies. So for example, within our Explorer page, you can see other examples of public workspaces where we have our partners. So for example, we have Twilio, Mercedes, Microsoft, and a couple other thousand workspaces where it hosts their Postman collections. And even the URL, so it's even postman.com/Twilio. And then within there, you can dive into the collections and start building. And then you can create forks within that collection, as well as see the create a feedback loop and see the change logs, even comment within it. The view here looks kind of weird because I'm zoomed in all the way, but once you zoom out on your view, it should be a lot better. But we go back to the Postman 101.
Cool. Yeah. So Vu, I just want to add a quick comment. So right. So like Vu said, so this is something that we made here. This is our own, personal public workspace. That's an odd way to describe it, a personal public workspace. But yeah, it's just going to be a collection or a series of collections that help folks, go through various things. So Vu, why don't you, if you can star that one, the Postman for Developers, and bring that to the top. So this is going to be the collection that we work off of. And because Vu's not actually, a member of this workspace, he won't be able to work on this. So what do you do in this situation, Vu? What should the folks at home be doing?
So I will go click this collection header name here, so Postman for Developers, and then the title and documentation should pull up. So I will create a fork, upper middle button here. There's 8 at the moment, so there should be more as folks follow along. So once I create a fork, I will label it, let's call it office hours with Sean. And then I will send it to the workspace where I want it to go. So I had made my own workspace, but I will call it office hours to fork the collection.
Cool. So yeah, this process is basically just taking, that public work that, folks outside of Postman wouldn't have access to directly and forking into their own little workspace so that you can do, so from here, now you'll be able to send requests and do all the things that you want to do and change it and play with it more.
So essentially, I'm cloning it, but I'm still tied to the original source, right?
Love it. So yeah, Vu, do you want to pull this documentation up and just make it like the view complete documentation?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So yeah, this is the button that Vu clicked there on the bottom right was view the collection or view the documentation. And so if you're following along at home or if you're following along later on, this is going to be, if you're not watching the stream, it kind of walks you through everything we talked about so far, how to get started, what the learning objectives are. And if you scroll down just a bit more, just a few more resources for, how you can follow along or if you get stuck or want to learn more. It's chock full of information. But I think the best thing to do now is let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. So I should start with step 1.
Yeah, let's do it. So the very first thing we talked about, first learning objective was know what Postman is. Then the second thing was setting a request. So yeah, click it. Cool. So the very first thing we're doing here, right, is just sending a GET request. And this is probably the most basic HTTP request you can send. You can see this first request is just all about, understanding the HTTP verbs. So GET, POST, PUT, and DELETE. If you look on the left, we kind of have those there. Oh, do you want to talk about the endpoint or the API that we're using to learn today?
Yeah. So this is the Postman Echo API, which essentially bounces back like a ping pong ball, it bounces back what you just sent. So this is in-house API that Postman built. Again, it's https://postman-echo.com/get. And then when I made the send request, it bounced back the headers, which were hidden here, as well as the URL. I didn't put any params authorization or even any body values in it, so it did not return any.
Yeah, that's great. And so, yeah, we just built this just basically so people can practice and test APIs or test this API and just get some, experience doing things. So let's go to the next request and check out a post request. Right. So post request is generally meaning you're going to send some information to an API, and you do this in this case in the body tab. So we're just sending some raw text. So if you click send. Right, so this post request, we get the same thing back, right? We get that data back. I mean, there's not much more to this, series of requests, right? The very first thing was just kind of like, what is sending a request? What does it mean? But what we can do is inspect here a little bit of the response. So, Vu, do you want to talk about some of the information that we've got, maybe in that like status bar and the time and everything?
Mm-hmm. So within once you send a request, you'll see the status. So I got yay 200. That's my favorite API number. I have the time, which is 297 milliseconds. It should be a little bit different for yours. And the response size here. So this is 848. And if I wanted to, I can save the response. And I've seen this as a popular use case where folks, they know what the response will be, and they want to share how it should work to other developers who are using it. So now it would show as a sub request here on the folder, and it shows as a response. So if you click it, it could show like, hey, this is what it should look like, which sometimes APIs may not be straightforward for everyone, but the example responses are really helpful, as well as displaying in the documentation.
So, Vu, you are already giving away a little bit of a spoiler alert. That is, if you look at number 3, we'll get into it in even more detail, but a little bit of foreshadowing for those, that one another.
Again, this is unscripted, so
No, it's totally, but it's an important thing to talk about, right? It's there, and if people see it and aren't familiar with it, and like, what is that? It's good to know. But yeah, right. This is, you kind of see the response and the various bits of information you can get. Vu, do you want to click on that test results tab or in the response area?
Mm-hmm.
So here we have, we've put in some tests already, and we'll talk a bit more about tests in the next section. But just kind of inspecting the response and seeing all the various things you can get. So Vu, on the bottom where you have headers and stuff, yeah, click test results. And this is just a bit more information about the response that you can get and just seeing, right? Like I said, we'll talk about the test that we put in there, but there's plenty of information about the responses. And this bottom kind of pane is where you'll see all those. So I think that's as good a time as any to move on to number 2 in terms of testing response, right? Like, what are these things that we put in here?
Okay. Test the response. Test echo response.
So let's go back before you click send. Just go back to the collection. We'll just quickly look at the documentation. So for all of these requests, if you're following along at home, or if you've forked the repo into your own workspace, and you're curious like why all of these folders exist, the documentation tab for each of these will have information about what we're trying to show you and how you can find more information on it. So in this case, it just kind of talks about the goal of testing and basics of how to do it. So just wanted to point that out as we go through. Like each one of these folders will have some more information on that. So yeah, go ahead.
Click send.
Not yet. So let's take just a quick look at what we've got here, right? So it's just a request so now we're passing in 2 parameters. It's another GET request to this Postman echo. So like Vu had said before, this API is designed to just send back exactly what you sent to it. So yeah, you can go ahead and click send. So we're going to just get this foo1 bar1 back, which is as expected. And now let's go to the test tab in our request.
A test tab. Okay, this green dot here.
Yeah, exactly. So the green dot there, it just means that there is code there, and it means we have something in that tab or section that we just so it just shows you that you have something there. And what this is an area where you can write some JavaScript code that will be run for the test tab. It will be run after the response is received. And you see next to it, we have this pre-request script. And if there's any code in here, this will be run before the request gets sent. So you can kind of control, a little bit of the workflow there. So yeah, Vu, go. I feel like I talked there for a bit. You want to give an introduction or talk a bit more about what tests are?
Yeah, essentially the test uses the chai.js assertion library within JavaScript. So if you know a little bit about chai.js, you can write your own scripts. And then Postman made it really easy. So on the right column here, you can see a bunch of snippets and just click and go. So for example, if I were to click response time is less than 200, it would show this, and you can see it's running the pm.test, so postman.test with the function and what it's expected to be. If I were to click send again, it'll show that another test was added under the test results. This time I had failed because my response time was 294, but I wanted to make sure it was under 200 milliseconds.
Awesome. Yeah, this test snippets are a really valuable way, an easy way to kind of get started, and just kind of have some canned templates that you can use, and then customize to kind of make your own test. So if we wanted, if we knew an API was kind of slow and we didn't care if it was 200 milliseconds or less, but you can make that. Why don't you make it 500 and run the same test again? Okay,
500 and 500 here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Good catch. Yeah,
I got too jumpy. Sweet.
Cool. Yeah, and now we pass because we see. Well, this one actually went super quick. It would pass before too. But yeah, so these test snippets are a great chance to just kind of play around and see what kind of things that you have. So that's kind of the basics of testing, right? There's all sorts of ways you can get more complicated. You can test against values in a response. Yeah, just you can do all sorts of cool stuff here. Anything else you want to add on this part, Vu?
Let's see. Yeah, tests are really useful. So I've seen a lot of wow use cases from customers. So for example, you can even fetch tokens to place into your environment. So you have to copy and paste. You can even make certain customizations so we can set the next request. So you can just automate your workflow using these tests to make sure your APIs are expecting or performing as expected.
Yeah, I've seen some really cool conditional logic of, if one thing happens, I want this request to be run next, or if the other thing happens, I want to do a different request. So just kind of gives you that control, which is really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. I think the next one, and we've actually had a few questions on this already, I think. And so Vu, like I said, gave us a bit of a preview. So Hyrule asked how to save the response. Can you please explain? Yeah, that's exactly what we'll get into now. So Vu, if you want to click the third one.
So click save to a collection.
Yeah, right. And so what we'll talk about here is this idea of amples. The way we define it is a tightly coupled request and response pair. And really what we mean by this is just creating a kind of history or examples of what successful or unsuccessful requests look like. And like Vu said, right, this is going to be very helpful with documentation. It helps your users understand kind of what's going on. It can also be used to create mock servers, which we probably won't get into much today. But there's plenty of information about that. So Vu, go ahead and take a look at the actual request. And you want to talk about that URL, talk about everything that's going on in this actual request?
Yeah, so it looks like it's using Postman Echo, and it's set the key as type and value as JSON, and with a 1 megabyte. So let's go click send. And looks like this specific request returned a size of 1 megabytes, which is pretty big for an API response, which is why it took a little bit longer with 890 milliseconds, and it's a pretty large response.
Yeah, right. So we have this big response, and kind of like we talked about before. So Vu, let's go ahead and actually save this response now. So walk us through that workflow.
Okay, so on the bottom right-hand corner within the response, I'll click Save Response, and I'll do save as an example. Okay. So now I'll get to name it. I'll name it, let's call it big response, just so it stands out. And I'll click anywhere, which saves it. Oh, cool. So now a sub example here under the collection called big response shows up. So if I were to click here, I can see the response as expected.
Yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes if you send, so this is really helpful, right? In this case, we've got a successful response with, a large bit of information. If we'll do a later example where we're searching for, like the basic authorization one, which we'll do. This is number 5. If you get an example, you can save an example if somebody makes a request that was unsuccessful, right? It's helpful for people to know, like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This is an understood behavior. This is, expected if I, don't authorize properly or send an invalid request. And so that's a really good way to use examples, right? Just making sure your users can kind of have the full landscape of possibilities. And like we said, it also is very valuable for creating mock servers, which, I've now mentioned again, but we won't dive into too much, but it's a good way to kind of create just kind of more functionality and knowledge for your API users.
And just better documentation overall.
Totally. Yeah, I know I always appreciate, when docs have, examples, and it's easier for me to get started that way and just kind of see it.
Yeah, because if I click onto the number 3 collection folder again, and I go to the documentation, I can see the response here.
Yeah, awesome point, Vu, right? Like this will automatically get added into the documentation now. And so, once this documentation is out there, anybody that comes along will be able to see the description, the actual endpoint, and then an example, which is extremely valuable, like we talked about. Cool. Should we jump into the next one?
Yes. So number 4, get and set variables.
Yeah. So Vu, let me ask you this. I'm a pretty picky tab person myself. You're comfortable with all the tabs up top? You don't mind all of the open tabs?
Yeah, let me force close all of them.
Cool. That's kind of what I wanted to see. Yeah, if you would do, so that's kind of a cool thing in Postman, right? If you have a million things open, you're like, I just want to get to the one tab that I'm trying to work on. Vu just showed a nice way to like clean up your workspace and just make it, so you can focus on the one thing that you want.
Yeah, and make sure to save each individual one if you don't want to lose that work if you had not saved it.
Yeah, that's a good
I made
call.
that mistake before.
Yeah. But I will point out this comment because I think it's really nice. Shronique, I hope I said your name correct, but yeah, thanks for the stream. I'm learning a lot. Awesome to hear. Really exciting. Cool. So variables. Vu, take it away. What can you say about variables for us?
Ooh, variables. This is where I can set and forget. So I can put in my keys. So it can be an API client ID or client secret. It can be even if I use JSON web tokens, I can put in the private key or public key, whatever is needed, and anything really, just so I can put it once and just name it as even like key, and I can just place it using some curly brackets. So should I jump to the request?
Yeah, right. I think, for developers, the idea of variables should be a pretty common one. But yeah, right. Like Vu said, it's just an opportunity to like reuse values and save them and change them in one place if you're reusing things. So it's a valuable thing to use. So let's talk about what's going on in this request. So yeah, again, we're making another call to Postman Echo, and now we've got the key, our parameters are a message, and the value is I love Cooper. So Cooper is I believe it's Ivanov's dog. Is that correct? Or is it like the company dog
I think it's, yeah.
in the Bangalore office, right? Is Cooper? Is that correct?
I believe so. Or it might be Ankit's dog, our CTO's dog.
Okay. But yeah, I guess Vu, our newness to the company is showing with our lack of total familiarity around Cooper.
Yeah, but he has his own emoji within Slack too. So
he does. Yeah, crucial part of the company. But yeah, okay. So for this one, right, we're trying to introduce this idea of variables. And so yeah, if we were to look at this, right, we're just sending a basic request with the message "I love Cooper." So you see that green dot again, right, in the test tab. So let's check out what we've got going on here. Okay. So what we're doing here is this pm.collectionVariables.set is a method that we have available on the Postman object that allows you to create a variable at the collection level, which we'll be able to reuse throughout this collection. And so, I mean, hopefully that makes sense. But basically, it's like we talked about, it's going to be this reusable value, and we're saving something called proposal as the name of the variable. And so, Vu, do you want to talk about variable scope and what this collection variables means?
Yeah. So you can store variables around a couple places within Postman. So what Sean mentioned was that within the collection level itself, so if I were to click all the way at the top for Postman for developers, I can see the variables listed here, which I don't have any set at the moment. At the same time, if I were not using it within the collection level, I can set up within the environment level as well. So I can add within environment or even within a global, so I can not have to jump back and forth within all of my workspaces.
Awesome. Yeah, that fantastic description. So let's go back to the request. And like Vu showed us, right, there are no collection variables set now. And so this test is going to run after we send the request. And let's click send. Cool. And so, excuse me, just like other Postman Echo requests, right? Nothing looks different at this point. But in theory, we should have saved a variable called proposal at the collection level. So Vu, do you want to go back to that view of the collection? Cool. And now you see that same dot, right, above variables.
Yeah, green dot.
Yep. Sure enough, right? So now we have this. Vu, do you want to close the documentation pane just so we can see the
yes, good call.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So now we have this variable proposal, and it has a current value of I love Cooper. And here's probably a good opportunity to talk a little bit about initial value versus current value. Do you want to take that? Sure.
Yeah. So initial value stays local. Sorry, it's always updated to the server, whereas current value stays local, is never updated to the Postman servers. And if you forget, it's hidden on the bottom here with a reminder. So for example, if I'm sharing environments or collections or even anything where I put in a variable, I would want to put the public facing information within the initial value here. So I can even put a placeholder for, let's call it shared with everyone. And then the current value can be, so it automatically persists or it copies it, but within the current value, I would make sure to reminder never or stores locally. So I'm text yelling right now. Never synced to servers.
Yeah, a great thing to be aware of and keep in mind, if you're dealing with sensitive data for sure. Cool. Yeah, so let's go back to that request. We've saved this variable at the collection level. I have a question here. How will we select the environment while sending request? That's a great question. I think Kokanda is asking, right, if you are sending a request and you don't have an environment set, how to programmatically do that before doing that. I believe there's a method in the Postman object to set an environment, but hopefully one of our Postmanauts in the chat can answer that while we keep going. But that is a great question, so hopefully we get you an answer, and if not, we'll dive in after the stream. But cool. So let's look at the next request, the use variables set from I believe it's this previous request.
Yes. So post use variables set from the previous request. Ooh, I see a variable at the top.
Yeah. So what's going on here? We've got a different color variable here. So talk to us, Vu. What can we do?
Let's see. I see red, which may not be the best because I see some green here. So if I were to click send, I have a feeling it's going to error out. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like we saw the collection level variables. There's nothing for echo base URL. We don't have any environment set. So let's go back to the previous requests, right? If we want to send something to this echo API, let's go ahead and show them, Vu, how we can set the variable by highlighting over something.
Okay, so let me check. Did this have a slash? Yes, it had a slash.
Yeah,
I wasn't set up.
Yep, great question.
So I hover over it, I can set as a variable. So I'll go set it as a new variable. And what was the name of it? URL?
Echo base URL.
Base URL?
I think it's URL is all caps, I believe.
Okay. Yes, because the variables are case sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll choose my scope. So I will put it in the collection, right, Sean?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Set variable.
Cool.
So hey, look, now my URL is shorter.
Yeah, right. It's a nice thing. So yeah, let's go back to this one now. And we should see that it's a resolved variable. Click send. Oh, and actually, okay, yeah, before we, if you're curious, like let's actually look at the body and how did it get this response, right? Here we're using that variable proposal that we saved from the previous response. And so that double curly brace, that's kind of our notation to indicate the use of a variable. In this case, because we have this variable called proposal that we saved from the previous request, it's able to use that in its request. And so if you hover over it, Vu, will it show us what it is? Okay.
Not at the body level, I believe.
Yeah, okay. But either way, we can see, right, so the request itself just had that variable, but if you look at the response, the proposal response does indeed have that value, I love Cooper. So again, this is like a very basic use of variables, right? But you can kind of start to see the usefulness in the power behind using variables and taking information from one request and then being able to reuse it in an ensuing request. And I think, yeah, Vu, I think it's worth showing the variables at the collection level. And now we should see, oh, interesting. I thought we would see, we have a conflict because we were hard coding the edits in this tab. But I think if you were, yeah. So I think if you just close that tab out, one where it has the conflict.
Oh, yes. Discard, right?
Yeah, try that. And we might end up with an issue, but yeah, let's click the collection level again and see if we have our variables. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so green means something new was added. So that was a good sign.
Cool. Yep, and now we see that echo base URL in there. Rudy, let's briefly jump into like an environment, right? So let's say just like another way to kind of work with variables.
So I'll click on the eyeball.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's talk for a quick sec about like why the environment's useful. Right. Everything in this workspace just has the one collection that we talked about. Right. And so it's fine to have collection level variables. But if we had, multiple collections in here and we wanted to say, use a value over and over in various collections, this is where an environment's going to be valuable, right? You can set it so it's able to be used across different environments. Yeah, so let's go ahead and create an environment.
Okay, so I will use I'll use the echo example here.
Cool.
And I think it was postman echo.com. And by default, it'll persist to the current value until I delete it. So funny story, at a previous company, I had used Postman and environments heavily to help manage different clients and different profiles. So I had, and at the same time, different environments within the API. So I had set variables and different environments. So I had one for like even staging. So if I'm making up this URL here, but if there was a Postman echo.stage.url, I would add it here, and even like a one for production, so this helped me manage clients' profiles, and I can toggle between them as I change customers, just to help manage it efficiently. because could never remember which profile I was using, but I can hop back and forth into different environments. It made it so much easier. And you should see my collection, my workspaces and environments. I had about like 5 different workspaces, and about each workspace had about a dozen environment files just for each different type of customers.
Yeah.
And just, I was able to set and forget. It made it so much easier. So, oh, this customer is calling to follow up on something. Let me hop back into that workspace with this environment set.
Yeah, right. And imagine, one of them, say you're using that URL in 20 places, right? And then the company changes their API. And it's like, oh, this is a new URL for it. You don't have to change it in 20 places. You can change it in the one, right? And it becomes way more valuable.
Mm-hmm. So you should see my drop-down list. I had to scroll down when I dropped it because I had so many different variables. So environments helped me so much. It was really, really useful.
Yeah, I believe it. So I want to show one more thing, Boo. So go down to that one, and let's go to our test tab.
The test tab.
Yeah, right. And so in theory, we should have this variable proposal. So let's just do like, I just want to show people how they can kind of get the variables programmatically. And so let's do like, let's do get a variable. We can use a test snippet, get a collection variable.
So the fourth one, get a collection variable. Okay, I will click that.
Right, and so this is going to be the code that will, find the variable under that variable key. So let's change the variable key here. And I think what did we call that other thing? Proposal, right?
Proposal.
Yeah. So let's get proposal.
Oh, it autofills for me.
Yeah, right. Really nice. And so from here, before we click send, let's save this as a variable in our space here. So let's say like var. So on the beginning of line 1, Vu.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say like var p equals. Cool. And now let's go to the next line. And we're going to kind of cheat a little bit and go ahead for something we'll show in a second. But let's do console.log. And let's put parentheses. And let's just put p, lowercase p.
Oops.
Because that's the name of because that's the name of the variable that we declared here in this little sandbox. I'd put a colon at the end there.
A colon? Yes.
Yeah, yep. And now, so before we click send, what's going on here, right? So we're getting this variable called proposal that we have saved already. And now I just want to show you that we can access this variable here in the test tab as well. So let's go ahead and click send.
Send.
Okay, and click the console button on the bottom left of the screen view.
Okay, the bottom left console. Okay.
All right. Oh, you know what? Why don't we clear everything in the console?
Oh, yes.
And let's send it again, just so we only have a clean thing. Cool, right? And now we see the response, and we see that I love Cooper, which is the variable. But now it's just, it's showing us P, which is the variable, but it's getting that information. So it's kind of a cool way you can work with variables, right? You can get them. You can also, set them programmatically.
Yeah, I can drill into them too. So the response body, the headers.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that's all for variables. So let's go on to the next one.
Okay, step 5, basic authorization.
Yeah. So why is authorization important, Vu?
Ooh, you need to verify who you are when you're using APIs. So when you have a secured API, which most companies do, you need to set some authorization and authentication so the API service knows who's using it, especially if some users have special permissions, such as admins. So this helps identify who is using it with the proper authorization.
Yeah, exactly, right. And also just like making sure, right, if I'm trying to access the Twitter API, that I can get the information that I want for myself, right? Like I can get my own user information. If I'm trying to, do nefarious things, it's good to know who's trying to do that, right? And so it's just, ways, they can protect themselves. So Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that request.
Okay, get basic auth.
Yeah. So again,
Okay.
yeah, we're just going to use the Postman Echo API again. This is a way to, this is not an actual, sensitive data API here, but it's designed to, kind of simulate that process of needing authorization or needing authentication to access an endpoint. So look at the authorization tab. And we see we have some super secure basic auth option here. So Vu, do you want to click on the type and just kind of go through some of the various things that you can have?
Ooh, we have a lot of options.
Yeah, right. So these are just a few of the ways, that in the Postman tool itself that you can, use authorization, and it's designed to help you do it in a much easier way, right? Like auth is always one of the trickiest parts of APIs. Postman makes it much easier than trying to enter this all in like a curl command. Let's go back to basic auth, because that's how the Postman Echo API is configured. You can click show password. Very, very secure password. But yeah, let's go ahead and click send.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? And this will be cool. Yeah, right. So that worked. This will be a good example of something where we can kind of save an example or save a response for our users, and we'll get like a successful one and then a unauthenticated one.
So I should save an example?
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay. So authenticated.
I would just say success.
Oh, yes. Keep it simple.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay, cool. It popped up at the bottom. Success.
Awesome. And now, yeah, let's go ahead and let's try it again with a password that's not the correct password. So let's just, I don't know, password 1 or anything.
1, 2, 3. And send. Ooh,
unauthorized. Right, so we can save this as well.
Failed.
I like it. Do not enter. Cool. Yeah, right. So, I mean, that kind of is a little bit of a callback to the examples. Right now, our users in the documentation will have, an idea of what it looks like. And, if they get this response, it's not that they did anything wrong. It's just you didn't provide the proper authorization.
And did you notice that the status code changed?
Yeah, right.
So one of the general principle or best practices of APIs are to be consistent with your status codes. So 401 is usually unauthorized. When I had the correct password, it should be 200. Yes, 200. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So Postman Echo API is following best practices there of providing the proper status codes. Cool. I mean, so that's basic auth in a nutshell, right? Like the UI in here allows you to kind of work with different things. Vu, if you want to show the code, actually, right? Show the little code tab all the way on the right, the little HTML looking things.
So next to cookies, the angle brackets with a slash in between. Yes.
So this is a really cool feature that Postman has, where it shows you the code snippet for your actual request in a series of languages, so that you don't have to, right? If you want to use the Postman GUI to create your request, it will, curate and create the code for you in like whatever language you want. So you can click that drop down, Vu, and see some of the various options. Curl is a big one, very, very popular. Various Node.js formats and libraries. Yeah, just a pretty helpful, another option for seeing, various things with the requests and auth.
So pretty much when you create your API endpoint within Postman, you can export it using the code snippet. So you apply it to your code within your IDE, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like Python, so I like how it uses the request library. It pulls up the URL, all the relevant header information, as well as it prints the response. So really convenient for Python users like myself.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, should we jump into that last one?
Ooh, step 6, yes, debug and troubleshoot.
And Vu, I've got to ask because it's going to bug me. Can you force close the other tabs?
Yes, good call. Let me click the 3 dots here and force close all tabs.
Sweet. Cool. Yeah. So I mean, this folder is truly just meant to give folks a bit of information about how to use the Postman console, what the Postman console is. And I think any developer is going to be familiar with your standard browser console, right? It's console log is a staple in debugging and figuring out what the heck is going on in your app. Postman console is no different, and we have various methods that allow you to kind of get information and glean what's going on in your requests and your responses in a request. So yeah, more information is available in the docs there, but let's go ahead and check out the request with different message types.
Okay, get message types.
So yeah, if you just look at the pre-request script, we just have like 4 pretty common methods for messages in a console, console.warn, .log, .info, and .error. So do you want to click send and just see kind of what these different ones look like in the console?
So I have the response, and I'll click the console on the bottom left. Well, let me clear it and then send it again.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Ooh. This is a warning.
Yeah. Right. And you can kind of see, what the different messages are going to look like depending on the method that they're sent through. I have an annoying error, right? If you ever see that red text, something went off the rails a little bit. But yeah, this is just a way you can kind of, again, just get more information, if you want, and you can filter things by errors. You can filter them by warnings in the console. So, do you want to like scroll up a tiny bit or bring that bar up a little bit?
Oh, just so the console again?
Yeah. Yes. And so you see where it says all logs next to the clear button?
All logs, yes.
Yeah, so if you want to filter that to just, so click that drop down, and if you just want like the errors, you only want to see things that went wrong, you can go ahead and remove certain things and get just your errors, which is another nice feature to kind of remove some of the noise if you have a lot of logs in your request. So yeah, I mean that's I think this request isn't incredibly fleshed out in terms of like how can you actually debug and troubleshoot. But the idea is, putting console logs in your code and trying to, trace through what happened. If you have a for loop or if you have some kind of loop in your code, setting, consoles in there and you can, put variables to kind of keep track of different things is certainly one way to kind of keep track of what's going on and help you debug a bit.
Yeah, especially if your tests are not going as you expect, it helps you just drill into what happened with the response and why it happened, just to help you troubleshoot your own, if there are any mistakes you may have made.
Totally. Cool. So I think that's all, Vu, for the the Postman for Developers section. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add from this specific collection.
Yeah, this is great. This collection I think will be really useful, especially for folks who may be new to Postman and want to just get started. Well, we went through it fairly quick.
Yeah, and so I will point out, right, for those watching at home, I did kind of spring this on Vu. He didn't really know a ton about what the collection was going to be, and that was kind of the goal, right? We want it to be accessible to folks, even if they haven't, they weren't familiar with the collection beforehand, they didn't, read anything about it. The goal is that it can be something that's informative and educational, even if you're just going through on your own. So, Vu, thank you for being a good sport and going through that live as I, peppered you with questions about what's going on.
Yeah, this is a good exercise. I highly recommend anyone to try it out, or even just rewatch the video to follow along if you had any questions, or even ping us on our social media channels.
Yeah, we're both here. Let's stop sharing your screen for now so it can be just us. But But yeah, I mean, I know, Vu, I know you're quite active. I'm also, I love engaging with folks, and if people ask questions, I'm certainly, excited to chat. I think let's transition to kind of the office hours section now. I see a few questions coming up, so I'll just pull up a question, Vu, and let's see if we can answer it.
Yeah.
Cool. So. Akshata, I hope I'm saying your name properly. Can we call a get/post request in pre-request script section to chain request? Great question. The answer is yes. You can absolutely, kind of programmatically set requests and chain requests in the pre-request and test script tab. Vu, do you want to go through that? I'm happy to share my screen and kind of show some stuff too. Whatever works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would pass it on to you to share your screen now.
Cool. Okay, give me just a sec here. So I will. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll share my screen and I'll go through kind of that forking mechanism as well.
Okay.
Right. So this is the original workspace we sent folks to. Again, we got a few forks during this. Awesome. Woo! Go us, Vu. Let's say post request example, and I will fork it into my test personal workspace. I truly have no idea what's in there, so this could be exciting.
I love unscripted workflows.
It's okay. It's all fun stuff. Okay, so let's say we want to. I will start with. Let's just go in a request, right? So right now I have these 4 requests in this folder. So if I'll zoom in, sorry. So if I'm not familiar with the runner, if folks aren't familiar with the runner, I'm just going to pull this up by clicking this button in the bottom right here. I'll take this question off. In the bottom right, called runner. This is just going to allow you to drag like a folder or a full collection and go through the entire folder or collection. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this folder in. And right now it's going to run all 4 of these, right? So run Postman for developers. It's actually going to just run these 4 requests. And you can see it ran, the get, the post, the put, and delete function all in a row. Now, let's say I want to control the workflow a little bit. So if I come in here to this get request, and let's say after this, I want to actually run the delete request. That's the next request I want to run. I'm going to come into my test tab, and I can actually, let's look and see if it's in the snippets.
Is it the set next?
Did I pass it? I thought it would be a snippet, but either way, I'm pretty sure it's just Postman dot set next request, right? So this Postman method has, or the Postman has some methods where we can pick and choose. So set next request is going to programmatically set the next request that I want, and I'm going to say I want it to run delete request. That's the name of the request I want to run. And if I click send, nothing's going to happen right now. I'm just going to run this as expected because this code runs after the request is sent. But again, they're not running in order right now. So let's go back to, I'll save this. Let's go back to this runner. I'm just going to exit out because it's busy. So I'll click runner. I'm going to drag this folder back in here again. And assuming I've done everything right? In theory, when things are normal, it should go and run all 4 requests in a row. But because I programmatically set that request to be delete request next, hopefully it should skip these 2 and just go right to the delete request. So let's click this. And we can see that did indeed happen, right? It ran the get request and then skipped to the delete request. So that's one way you can kind of control the workflow in the test tab or in the pre-request tab. So I could have also done this in the pre-request. I just chose to do it in the test tab. So hopefully that answered your question before. I forget who asked it. We got a few questions up here. Oh yeah, right. So that was, can we get a get/post request in pre-request script section to chain request? I could have, right, so in terms of chain requests, if I wanted to, have some conditional logic, like if I was keeping track of a variable or like wanted to run it a certain number of times, I could do some sort of like, for var I equals 0, I less than 5. Right, if I set this variable, I could, set next request and have it run over and over, right? So you can kind of chain it that way as well. This is very rough pseudocode, but that's kind of the idea there. Cool. Let's see some other questions here. Can you please tell me how to organize tests in Postman? I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but you can certainly, we have the various test snippets that help you kind of keep track of stuff. I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on like how to organize tests? I'm not sure exactly what the question means.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of ways. You can set a test for the collection on the collection level. Do you mind click on any collection header to show the even a subfolder of the collection? So if you go to tests within that on the right, yeah, you can set up the tests there to make it run for all the requests within there. Another way I've seen is you can even use the eval function for repeated tests.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, this is a nice way, right? So if I were to set, status code is 200 here, and because it's at the collection level, this will run after every single request that is sent. So if I go again back to this folder and put this in the runner, which actually it's only going to run twice because I have that previous workflow control. But you can see that even though this test status code is 200 doesn't exist in this request here, because it exists at the collection level, it's run for every single request, which is kind of a nice way to organize it, right? You can, rather than repeat tests, you can kind of reuse them by putting things at the collection level.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Boo.
Sorry, my doorbell just rang.
No worries.
Just to tease folks, we do have the flow runner coming up in a few months where you can chain the requests together without having to code the JavaScript. So Abanov showed a snippet. Our CEO Abanov showed a snippet during the Postman Galaxy opening or the keynote presentation where essentially you could. I like the analogy of recipes where you create recipes for these requests and you can set up very specific actions afterwards without having to code. So you can just click a bunch of things. So essentially it's one of our low code, no code approaches so non-developers can figure out, especially folks who may not be as familiar with JavaScript. Yeah,
that's a great point, right? Like, I'm familiar with JavaScript, so it's easier for me to go in and kind of like change the tests and have an idea of what it means. But if you're not familiar with JavaScript and you're messing around, in Postman, like there's plenty you can do, but testing is a little bit more challenging without that JavaScript knowledge. So yeah, I think Flow Runner is going to be a great opportunity for people to kind of be able to get their hands dirty and do more, complex stuff, even if they don't have any sort of like technical background or JavaScript knowledge.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Here's another good question. Recommendations for what should be environment variable versus collection variable. Yeah, so I'll share my screen again real quick. So in this case, let's X out some of these things. So I could have done the force close tab here, like you did. Collection level variables are going to be great for things that I know will be very specific to one collection, right? So if I am working on this collection that we were doing before, and I know that I have, like I need to keep track of Cooper's name, right? And I was only going to use it in this collection. That's a totally fine place to keep it for a collection variable. But if I know that I need to keep track of, say, like credentials, like I need to use a token or like login information that's going to be used in, say, this collection for the Twitter API and this Twitter collection for the API. I could have the collection level variable for each authorization, even if it's going to be the same, but that's kind of repeating yourself, right? Like setting up auth for multiple collections. So that's one place where an environment variable could be valuable, right? If it's going to be used across multiple collections in the same workspace. Another good example for environment variables, like Vu was talking about before, is right if you want to be able to kind of switch context quickly, right? So if you have a collection and you want to run it based on a certain set of variables, but then you also want to be able to, with a click of a button, go from one environment to the other and change a whole slew of variables in one shot, that's another time when environments are going to be valuable. So hopefully that answers your question. Vu, you sent me a link. Is this to the Flow Runner?
The Flow Runner snippet. Well, I can't send it on the chat if you can. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So I sent it over for you. But yeah, so the link I just sent to folks, that's information on the Flow Runner that Vu talked about before. Yeah, right. So here was the question for the link to that video. So there we go.
Yeah.
So
Kevin, the link jumps straight to the spot, but you feel free to watch the whole 30 minutes of it as Abhinav presents all these other announcements and features coming up for 2021. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that is a cool video. So Kevin asked, can you post to community.postman.com? Might be a better format to have this conversation and provide recommendations. Kevin, is that to myself and Vu, or is that to somebody in the chat that I missed? I'll let them. Oh, I see. It looks like here's a question. If I set up some global functions in the pre-request by setting PM. Okay. Yep, I see a few folks chatting about it now. Yeah, that's a great idea, Kevin. Thank you for suggesting that, and I'll kind of bring that up now. This the community.postman.com. I'll share my. Well, I already have my screen shared, but so community.postman.com is. Go ahead, Vu. Sorry.
Can you show how I can navigate it from the Postman website?
I can try. I always just type postman.com. So let's say I'm at. I know how. Okay.
So go to Postman and then.
If I'm at postman.com.
All the way down.
Yeah. So I go all the way down to the bottom. Some use cases at the very, very bottom. I think we've got under resources.
Even at there was a section above it too. So in the footer. But there was one above it for the community. If you can jump, there it is.
Join the Postman community. Awesome. Yeah. So this is another. I mean, this is a great place, right? So there's a few ways to get to it. You can type the URL directly. You can find it from the homepage. But this is a great place for folks to come and ask questions. Like the one we saw in the chat here that Kevin was addressing. Complicated questions, where you're just stuck and need some help. If you've written a blog post or want to highlight various things, or you're just having trouble getting started, this is a great place where Postmanauts hang out, and we actually have an awesome community of folks that truly love answering questions. Shout out to some of our Postman supernovas. They're great and just really help the community thrive and answer questions, and it's such a cool part of working at Postman.
Yeah, even I go there every now and then to find answers to questions just from clients. So we have a great community. Was it 15 million developers and counting?
Yeah, right. And so the forum is quite active. I'm on here every day. And some of our other Postmanauts are on here.
Yeah, and just my biased opinion, but I think it's better than Stack Overflow. So I think it's the spot to be.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've got quite a few folks that monitor this daily. So it is a great place to go if you're looking for engagement and answers. So let's see. Do we have any other questions in here? Oh, cool. So Divyesh has just joined the company 2 weeks back. Really excited to work on the front end and Elasticsearch.
Ooh,
Cool.
welcome.
Yeah, welcome. All right. I think we'll hang out for another minute or so, see if we get another question. But yeah, in the meantime, if you've stuck around, hopefully, I'll talk about something we've got coming up. So on Thursday, we've got a stream where Arlemy will welcome, I forget exactly, somebody from OutSystems. And so they'll be talking about mock servers and hopefully build something cool, create an app to rate the Eurovision 2021 performances. Vu, are you familiar with Eurovision?
No, what is that?
Good question. I think it's Arlemy would know, and he told us about it. But I think it's something with like traveling or like music stuff. But I could be way off. But it's now that I think about it, I think it's like a show like The Voice or something like that.
Oh.
But I'm sure somebody will correct me and or be offended that I compared whatever it is to The Voice. But yeah, okay. I think that's about it. So yeah, I think we can wrap up. Vu, anything on your mind or on anything that you wanted to add?
No, this is great. Yeah, I love the community. They post a lot of really good questions. I guess if you have any other questions, you can continue on the Postman community channel or any of our other social media channels, really.
Totally. Yeah, this video will be up on our YouTube, so you can watch this. We just got so David helped out with the description of what Eurovision is. Super Bowl of European music competition. So I was actually pretty close. As long as David's not trolling us, and that is what it actually is. But cool. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Like I said, this video will be up on YouTube, and feel free to go there. We will continue building out Postman 101 type sessions for for folks of all kind of what's a good word, Vu? Postman for developers, Postman for testers, different types of users.
Postman for anyone.
Postman for anyone. Yeah, right. So we're going to continue building those out. On the first Tuesday of every month, we'll have this kind of session of Postman for so and so, followed by office hours where you can come and ask any of your questions. So
that's awesome. Right.
Yeah, Vu, thanks so much for hanging out with us and answering questions. And thank you to everyone. And we shall see you Thursday, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.